In the previous episode, we looked at the origin of the word demon and the origin of the concept of demons in the Bible. In this episode, we will be expounding on that information as well as looking in detail into some key points to deepen our understanding of this topic. We're going to be looking at some common misconceptions as well. As we saw in the first episode, entities colloquially called demons are referred to under many names in both the Old and the New Testament. Unclean spirit is by far the most common phrase. However, there are times that the phrases used are more ambiguous. Looking into the original languages which the Bible was written in opens up a new avenue of research. It enables the readers to obtain a deeper level of understanding. Understanding the original language also gives the readers an advantage over other readers, in the sense that you are less susceptible to misconceptions which are rampant due to the incorrect translations or interpretations of the biblical text. The topic of demons is especially prone to such misconceptions because of the aforementioned ambiguity. There are many powers and entities referenced in the Bible that are often misinterpreted as being demons. One of the most popular verses quoted from the Bible regarding demons is Ephesians 6:12, where we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against the rulers of the darkness of this world, against spiritual wickedness in high places. This is a verse which is extremely powerful and has many layers to it. However, this verse is not about demons. Principalities is often misconstrued as referring to demons, given the use of many different names and titles when referring to demons in the Bible. The word that is here translated principalities is the Greek word arche, word 764 in your Strong's Concordance. It can be used to refer to beginnings or to governments. In the context which it is used here, Strong's gives the following commentary. Quote, arche is used of supramundane beings who exercise rule called principalities, either A, holy angels, as in Ephesians 3:10, or B, of evil angels, as in Ephesians 1:22 and 6:12. That being said, this verse is not referring to demons, but to the fathers of demons, that is to say, the fallen angels. If one recalls from our previous episode, demons are the disembodied spirits that resulted from the death of the hybrid offspring of the fallen angels, as in Genesis 6:4. Principalities are defined as states ruled by a prince. Supramundane, the word used in the Strong's definition, is defined as transcending the mundane, belonging to the ideal and or above the sensible world. For lack of a better word, supernatural. That being said, what Ephesians is telling us here is that we are not battling against flesh and blood, but against states led by supernatural princes, indeed the rulers of the darkness that is in the world. It must also be considered that most states led by princes or principalities have armies. This coincides well with the incident in the book of Mark, chapter 5, verses 8 through 13, where the demons which are cast out into the swine tell Jesus that they are legion. While it is used to refer to something of great numerical value, the term legion is a military one. This is a theme which can be found throughout the Bible. Looking back to Ephesians, we see these princely entities are qualified as spiritual wickedness in high places. This is a double-edged phrase which refers directly back to the angelic origin of the fallen angels and also to the wickedness that they brought into the heavens, but also referring to the places set up on earth for their worship during the Cabal, colloquially called the high places. The word power here is also deeper than it appears. The word that is translated here as power is the Greek word exousia, 1849 in the Strong's Concordance, translated as spiritual potentates, or, quote, the leading and most powerful among created beings superior to man. The only beings which were created superior to man, and we are not given dominion over, are angels, as noted in Psalms chapter 8, verse 5, for thou hast made him but a little lower than the angels. Thus, the word power, as used in this context, is also a direct reference to fallen angels. This may seem slightly repetitive. However, if one looks closely at the sentence structure of 6:12, you see that the word and is not used in this version. We will compare this in a moment to Ephesians chapter 1, verse 22, where and is heavily used. The lack of the word and here in 6:12 indicates that each clause is not referring to a new subject, but is instead a reiteration of the same subject for emphasis or further clarification. If this had been a list of different subjects, grammatical laws would have required the word and to appear at the very least before the very last clause. This does not happen, indicating that this is not a list but an emphatic statement. We will compare this to Ephesians 1:22, where it is very clear that each clause is referring to a different subject. On the surface, it seems to be a rather straightforward verse. However, careful linguistic research reveals that this unassuming verse essentially lays out hell's hierarchy for the reader. I am still studying the second part of the verse, as its meaning is yet unclear to me. For this reason, we will only be looking at the first half of the verse. For context, it states in the previous verse that in the end days, Jesus will be placed above all of the entities which are listed in this verse, and that they will be made into his footstool. Quote, far above all principality and might and dominion and every name that is named, not only in this world, but in that which is to come. The word translated principalities here is the same used in 6:22, RK, 6:12, not 6:22, and holds the same definition. The next major word, might, is word 1411, dunamis, in the Strongs, derived from word 1410, dunamai. I didn't look up how to pronounce that one. Sorry, folks. The translation given in the Strongs for this word is the inherent power for performing miracles. Moving on to the next word, dominion. This is word 2962 in the Strongs, kuriotis, and is defined as a lord or lordship. Putting these phrases together and rewording, we come up with the following sentence. Christ will be placed far above all of the states of the fallen angel princes and those with the power of performing miracles and all of the lords of the darkness and every name that is named, not only in this world, but in that which is to come. I have my own suspicions about what that second part means, but I would rather not go into it here until I have all information available. It is clear, I say that later. Sorry about the repetitivity. I wrote this a few days ago and I haven't had time to record it yet, so I forgot that I already said that. So just continue reading on here. It is clear here that the writer is referring to several different entities rather than emphasizing the same concept as he was in 6:12. Each of these individual topics are worth studying into, an endeavor which I am partaking in, but which we do not have time to cover here. Nor do I wish to delve into the specifics on these until I have done enough research to have an educated opinion, as I would not wish to share inaccurate information. It is also worthy to note that we are not given express permission to cast out these princes and lords. Demons, unclean spirits, or evil spirits, we are clearly given authority over. And in Jesus Christ's name, we have the authority to rebuke them and to cast them out. This is what we are told to do. This is how we are told to deal with demons expressly by Jesus Christ. In Matthew 10:8, when Jesus is instructing the disciples on how to act and what to do, he commands them to go forth and, quote, heal the sick, raise the dead, heal the lepers, and cast out demons. Freely you receive, freely you shall give. So casting out demons or unclean spirits is obviously what is expected of us. However, regarding these principalities, mights, and dominions, we are not told to rebuke them or to cast them out, but to battle with them or wrestle with them. Ephesians 6:11-18 describes what is necessary to withstand these principalities. Put on the whole armor of God that you may be able to stand against the wiles of the devil. For we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against the rulers of the darkness of this world, against spiritual wickedness in high places. Wherefore take unto you the whole armor of God, that ye may be able to withstand in the evil day, and having done all, to stand. Stand therefore, having your loins girt about with truth, and having on the breastplate of righteousness, and your feet shod with the preparation of the gospel of peace. Above all, taking up the shield of faith, wherewith ye shall be able to quench all the fiery darts of the wicked. And take the helmet of salvation and the sword of the Spirit, which is the word of God, praying always with all prayer and supplication in the Spirit, and watching thereunto with all perseverance and supplication for all saints. Note again the military terminology. The powers of the princes of evil are beyond those of their sons, the demons, to the extent that it must be considered in military terms. Whereas for unclean spirits, we are simply instructed to cast them out and not give much thought to them afterwards. This should speak to the power and might, both in modern terms and the Greek translation discussed above, as in the power to perform miracles of these entities, but also to the power and might of our Lord and his Son, whose gospel defends us against these powers. It is speculatory on my part, but I do think it interesting that we are given authority over the demons, but not the fallen angels or principalities. And I believe that this may have to do with the origin of demons. We were already given the victory over the Nephilim and the giants when they were living, to take them and slaughter them and all of their kind. They were handed over to the Hebrews in the days of Joshua. Therefore, it makes sense that demons being the disembodied spirits of those defeated foes, that we would retain that authority over them. We have already claimed our victory over them. It is also worthy to take into consideration, adding on to my transcript here, so forgive me if I speak sideways, that God did say that he would place enmity between our seed and the seed of the serpent, and that we would constantly be in battle. So that's also worthy of consideration here when you consider the military terminology that is constantly used throughout the Bible, considering the battle between good and evil. With all of these factors taken into consideration, which must be my favorite word today as much as I'm using it, if one truly wishes to study demons throughout the Bible in a meaningful way, you must first start with before they became disembodied spirits. My own studies for the past several years have been divided into two distinct portions: the studying of the giants, embodied demons, if you would, and the studies of their fathers, the fallen angels. I have a large myriad of notes from these studies entitled on the topic of giants in the Bible. In these notes, parts of which I will be sharing with you in this episode and in future episodes, I carefully document using the Strong's Concordance and the commentary column of the King James Version Bible the various giants encountered throughout the Bible, and have produced an exhaustive yet by no means complete list of the tribes of giants, the battles with giants, and even the names of several giants. My current theory regarding Ephesians 1:22 is that the names that are named, not only in this world but also in the next, is referring both to these giants named in the Bible, but also to the fallen angels listed in the book of Enoch, such as Azazel, which is unfortunately a topic for another day. When I began researching giants in the Bible, I did not know that I was also researching demons. This would not be brought to light until a few years into my research. I went into the search rather tentatively, assuming that it would be rather difficult to find information. However, through following the center column references and careful concordance research, one quickly finds that giants are everywhere in the Old Testament. No fewer than 11 giants are named by name in the Bible. Goliath mentioned for, this is a list of giants, what is said about the giants and where they are mentioned. This is basically my little giant concordance. Goliath, we all know who Goliath is, no explanation needed there. 1 Samuel chapter 17, verse 9 through to chapter 22, verse 10. Arba, greatest of the tribe of Anak. Joshua chapter 15, verse 13, as well as chapter 21, verse 11. Anak, son of Arba, mentioned in Numbers 13:22 through 33, Deuteronomy chapter 9, verse 2, Joshua chapter 15, verse 13 through 14, as well as in 21:11, and Judges verse 1, chapter 1, verse 20. Ahiman, another son of Anak, mentioned in Numbers 13:22, Joshua 15:14, and Judges 1:10. Ishbabenob, son of Rapha, 2 Samuel 21:16. Lami, brother of Goliath, 1 Chronicles 20, verse 5. Og, king of Bashan, Numbers 21:33, 32:33. Deuteronomy chapter 1, verse 4, chapter 3, verses 1 through 4, chapter 3, verses 10 through 13, chapter 4, verse 48, chapter 29, verse 7, and chapter 31, verse 4, and the book of Joshua, chapter 2, verse 10, chapter 9, verse 10, chapter 12, verse 4, chapter 13, verse 12, and chapter 13, verse 20. Saf, son of Rapha, 2 Samuel 21:18. Sippai, son of Rapha, 2 Chronicles 24. Shishai, son of Anak, Numbers 13:22, Joshua 15:14, and Judges 1:10. And Talmai, also another son of Anak, Numbers 13:22, and Joshua 15:14, and Judges 1:10. Anak was also listed as being the leader of the Anakim tribe after his father Arba's passing. In my studies, I also read through a large section of the Old Testament, finding that in the book of Numbers, Deuteronomy, and 1st and 2nd Samuel especially, the references to giants were so pervasive that the only adequate way of studying them was to read the chapters or entire books front to back. Because of this, my notes contain synopses of major portions of the Bible regarding giants, starting with Numbers chapter 13. The following are some of those synopses copied from my original notes. It should be easy enough to research anything below in your own Bible from the information given, and I encourage you to do so. I will also try, if I can remember, I am going to copy and paste that concordance into the comment section, because I know, so that you can look it up for yourselves, because I know from audio, it was probably a little bit difficult to catch all the numbers there. Plus, I'm not speaking very well today, apparently. So starting with Numbers 13:33. This section of Numbers regards the 12 spies sent to Canaan, the promised land. Verse 29 reports the Amalekites as well as the Amorites dwell there. Verse 33 states the spies encountered giants whom they were the size of insects in comparison to. It also specifies that the descendants of Anak came from giants. Following several center column citations leads to Joshua 11:15, which states that the Anakim were run out by Joshua later, but remained in Gaza, Gath, and Ashdod. Noted here that Goliath was titled Goliath of Gath. Also, Deuteronomy 1:28 restates Numbers 13:33 and reinforces further the idea of the Anakim as giants. Deuteronomy, starting from the aforementioned 1:28. The children of Israel are afraid of the sons of Anakim and refuse to enter Canaan. Anakim believed to be a derivation of the name of Anak, and they proclaimed that God has left them to die under the Anakim, and therefore they are damned. They never enter Canaan for their cowardice and spite, save Caleb and Joshua. The rest of that generation returned to the wilderness for 40 years. Upon hearing the Lord's wrath and the sentence of another 40 years of wandering, the people attempted to fight the Amorites in order to win back the Lord's grace. The Lord explicitly told them not to do so. However, they did so anyways in typical Israelite fashion. The Amorites thus drove them from Seir to Hormah, chapter 1, verse 44. Only then did they obey the Lord's words and went unto the wilderness. They skirted Mount Seir until the Lord commanded they pass through. It is then revealed that Seir is occupied by the descendants of Esau, and Mount Seir is given to them as a possession. In verse 10, it is said that the land of Ar was once inhabited by the Emim. quote, a people as great and tall as the Anakim, chapter 2, verse 10. In verse 18 of chapter 2, the Lord permits the children of Israel, after 38 of the 40-year sentence, to begin the journey back to Canaan through Ar. The land occupied by Ammon is also declared to be a land of giants, giants now destroyed, but called by the Ammonites the Zamzummim. Verse 22 states that the Horites, inhabiting Seir and being likened also to the Anakim, were destroyed before the descendants of Esau. Chapter 3 recites how the king of Bashan, Og, battled the children of Israel. Verse 11 also states him to be a giant. Seir and Mount Seir is the area now known as Petra Jordan, with Seir literally translating rock. 1st and 2nd Samuel. 1 Samuel chapter 15. The Lord commands Saul to attack Amalek and kill everything, leaving no life, to kill all men, women, children, cattle, and even every blade of grass. Saul does not obey, taking the king and women captive. The city is taken, after also warning Kenites to flee from the land of Amalek. The king, Agag, and also the best of the cattle were spared, as well as, quote, all that was good, including the women. It is after this that the Lord laments anointing Saul, who has left the Lord's way. 27:8. David, in hiding from Saul's wrath, kills many of the Amalekites, leaving none alive in that city. It was not known that David was the one killing them, for he was in hiding amongst them. So David dwelled amongst them even while slaying them. Chapter 30, verse 1 reports sometime later, after David has been told to leave the surviving Amalekites, that the Amalekites take Ziklag and take all women and children captive, amongst them being David's 2 wives, Abinoam and Jezreelites, as well as Abigail, the widow of Nabal. After consulting the Lord, David pursues the Amalekites. The remaining Amalekites would eventually be slain in the days of Hezekiah by 500 men of Simeon. Whether or not the Amalekites were giants is debatable, although the fact that their bloodline was impure is not to be questioned, for otherwise God would not have ordered them to be purged so. Therefore, we also do not know if their spirits would become demons or not. The question is ultimately how many generations removed from the Nephilim must one be in order to be human and not demonic in nature. Also a question here in my mind, I don't know the answer to this at all, is if the results of the second incursion were demonic spirits or not, because we do know there was a major size difference and many other differences. Also do note that we are only talking here about giants after the flood. We'll be discussing the ones and the antediluvian giants in a moment. Samuel 1 chapter 17 verses 4 through 23, essentially the entire chapter, is dedicated to the careful depiction of David slaying Goliath. 21 verse 8 and 22 verse 10 regard David obtaining the sword of Goliath while fleeing from Saul. I believe that is also where Saul ordered quite a few priests or prophets, whatever they were called in that day, I forget, I think prophets, to be slain because they gave aid to David. Samuel 2 chapter 27 verse 16 refers to a war with the Philistines after Saul's death and David's ascension to the throne. Quote, Ishbi-Benob, who was one of the sons of the giant. Center column references here regards the giants and references the name Rapha. Ishbi-Benob's spear was of bronze, weighing 300 shekels. Let it be known, spears of these measurements and material have been found all over the world. Reading further, the giant Soph is referenced and killed. Center column references note Soph to also be called Sippe, as read in 1 Chronicles 20, verse 4. Soph/Sippe is also, quote, one of the sons of the giants. Again, center column references to Rapha from 2 Samuel chapter 21, verse 18. It is not clear whether Rapha is a name or a tribe. Scholars do not agree on this fact. The war The war continues at Gob, where the brother of Goliath is killed. The center column reference here references 1 Chronicles chapter 20, verse 5. The verse in question being 2 Samuel, verse 21, chapter 21, verse 19. Another battle is listed here, now at Gath. Quote, where there was a man of great stature who had 6 fingers on each hand and 6 toes on each foot, 24 in number, and he also was born to the giant. Again, the giant being Rapha, but it's not clear if that was a tribe or a person. Citation here is 2 Samuel chapter 21, verse 20. We're moving on to the book of Joshua. The majority of chapters 12 and 13 are dedicated to both the listing of kings and the lands conquered upon the children of Israel's return from the wilderness, and the dividing of this land between the tribes. Chapter 12, verse 4 affirms the defeat of Og, king of Bashan, remnant of the giants. Chapter 13, verse 12 doles the land of Bashan to the half-tribe of the Reubenites and the Gadites. Chapter 15, verse 8 refers to a valley of the Rephaim, using it to describe the northern border of the land allotted to the tribe of Judah. Rephaim is literally translated as giants in Hebrew. It also has other meanings, which you can go back to our first episode to listen to hear about. I already read that. Chapter 17 regards the lot of the tribe of Manasseh. The inhabitants of several cities could not be driven out, and so the Canaanites were instead put to hard labor, but allowed to remain, which is against the word of God. The people of Manasseh were also not satisfied with their allotment and took the matter up with Joshua. Joshua thus instructed in verse 15 that they should take then the land of the Perizzites and giants. It is stated in verse 16 that these Canaanites have chariots of iron and were quite fearsome. Chapter 18, verse 17 once more refers to the valley of the Rephaim. The valley of the Rephaim was also where there was a battle that occurred there where Moses had to keep his hands up, and every time he let his hands down, the Israelites would lose. So that is the same place. If I recall correctly, it is also the same place where you can today find Gilgal Rephaim, the wheel of the giants, which is also where Elijah was taken up into heaven. So that is a very historical place. It's also the battle of, I can't pronounce the name, especially without looking at it, but the battle which was referenced in Numbers 13:33. It's like the battle of Chedrozomer, something really weird. Note that all of the instances above are after the flood. This is what is referred to as a second influx of the Nephilim. The extra-canonical book of Enoch provides more insight into the antediluvian giants, how they came into being, and their deeds upon the earth, and their punishment towards them and towards their fathers, the fallen angels. Chapter 6, verses 1 through 6. And it came to pass, when the children of men had multiplied, that in those days were born unto them beautiful and comely daughters. And the angels, the children of heaven, saw and lusted after them, and said one to another, Come, let us choose wives from among the children of men, and beget us children. And Semyaza, who was their leader, said unto them, I fear ye will not indeed agree to do this deed, and I alone shall have to pay the penalty of a great and grievous sin. And they all answered him and said, Let us all swear on an oath, and all bind ourselves by mutual imprecation not to abandon this plan, but to do this thing. Then swear they all together and bound themselves by mutual imprecations upon it. Chapter 7. And all the others together with them took unto themselves wives, and each chose for himself one. And they began to go in unto them and defiled themselves with them. And they taught them charms and enchantments, and the cutting of roots, and made them acquainted with plants. And they became pregnant, and they bare great giants, whose height was 3,000 ells, who consumed all the acquisitions of men. And when the men could no longer sustain them, the giants turned against them and devoured mankind as well. And they began to sin against birds and beasts and reptiles and fish, to devour one another's flesh and drink the blood. Then the earth laid accusation against the law ones. Accusation, not accusation. Chapter 9, verse 10. And now behold, the souls of those who have died are crying and making their suit to the gates of heaven, and their lamentations have ascended and cannot cease because of the lawless deeds which are wrought on the earth. Chapter 10. Then said the Most High, the Holy and Great One spake, and sent Uriel, the son of Lamech, and said, to the son of Lamech, and said to him, Go to Noah and tell him in my name, hide thyself, and reveal to him the end that is approaching, that the whole earth will be destroyed, and a deluge is about to come upon the earth, and will destroy all that is on it. And now instruct him that he may escape, and his seed may be preserved for all the generations of the world. And again the Lord said to Raphael, Bind Azazel hand and foot, and cast him into the darkness, and to make an opening in the desert, which is in Duadel, and cast him therein, and place upon him rough and jagged rocks, and cover him with darkness, and let him abide there forever, and cover up his face that he may not see light. And on the day of the great judgment he shall be cast into the fire. And heal the earth which the angels have corrupted, and proclaim the healing of the earth, that they may heal the plague, and that all the children of men may not perish through the secret things that the watchers have disclosed and taught their sons. And the whole earth has been corrupted through the works that were taught by Azazel. To him ascribe all sin. And to Gabriel said the Lord, Proceed against the bastards and the reprobates and the children of fornication, and destroy the children of fornication and the children of the watchers from amongst men, and cause them to go forth. Send them one against the other, that they may destroy each other in battle. For length of days they shall not have. And no request that they, their fathers, make of thee shall be granted unto their fathers on their behalf. For they hope to live an eternal life, and that each one of them will live 500 years. Chapter 15, verse 8 through 11. And now the giants who are produced from the spirits and flesh shall be called evil spirits upon the earth, and on the earth shall be their dwelling. Evil spirits have proceeded from their bodies, because they are born from men, and from the holy watchers is their beginning and primal origin. They shall be evil spirits on earth, and evil spirits they shall be called. As for the spirits of heaven, in heaven shall be their dwelling. But as for the spirits of the earth, which were born upon the earth shall be their dwelling. And the spirits of the giants afflict, oppress, destroy, attack, do battle, and work great destruction on the earth, and cause trouble. They take no food, but nevertheless hunger and thirst, and cause offenses. And these spirits shall rise against the children of the children of men, and against the women, because they have proceeded from them. From the R.H. Charles translation of the Book of Enoch. I do not think that one could give a better definition of a demon as was given in those last few sentences of that last verse. Nor is there any room for doubt in that quote that the spirits of the giants become demons. For the sake of time, we will end our conversation here tonight. This was a pretty long-winded episode, more before you edit it. I will be surprised if I can record it within the 40-minute time limit given by Zoom. We succeeded in that today. I hope that you enjoyed our investigation and will continue to investigate on your own. We will be covering a little more information in the next episodes regarding what I call Satan's little creations, or what most people call cryptids. We will be tying that into the Loch Ness Monster, among other topics. Thank you all for your patience in the last few weeks. I just started my new job, and figuring out how to balance everything has been quite interesting. Hopefully we will be able to resume our Sunday special this week. If not, I do apologize and ask you folks to bear with us. As always, please remember to like and subscribe. We are trying to reach 1,000 subscribers by the end of the year. Thank you for joining us, and I hope to see you all again in our next investigation.